Hello everyone, this is part 2 of Server 2012 Failover cluster. In part 1 we configured, implemented the um iSCSI target or the storage and made it ready for the cluster. What we did, we added a second disk in this server. So this is iSCSI target. And then we partitioned, actually we added it, and then we made it available for these other cluster nodes to use, and then we went into each node in iSCSI initiator and configured and verified that the storage is existing on Wint1. In this video I'm going to show you how to install failover cluster, how to configure the failover cluster, and how does it work. So let's get started. Now in this here I have one iSCSI target available that is connected to Wint2, and this is the disk actually that appears here. This disk is coming from actually iSCSI initiator that we configured. So if I go to initiator on Wint2, it is right here, it's connected. Now in order to fulfill the failover clustering requirement, first of all let me add the two network cards. Why do I need to add two network cards? Because one is for public network. I'm gonna call them public, and public network card already exists. I'm gonna add a second network card on each for the private network, which will be the heartbeat network for failover cluster. So let's add two network cards here. And so in order to add that card, we can go to settings, we can go to add, and network card, finish, done. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the Wint3. Add and network card, and done. So this is done. Now I need to configure them. Configure the network cards. In order to configure the network card, we need to go to network card settings, and we can go to adapter settings. So this one is my public network, which is, I'm gonna call this public, P-U-B-L-I-C, public. And here this card, I'm gonna call this private. This is the new card that I just added. This card does not have IP address yet. So in this card I'm gonna go here and here disable IPv6. For failover clustering we need to do few more things here. So I'm gonna keep this network separate from our public network. We can have it on the same network, but just for recommendation is that keep it separate network just for heartbeat purposes. Here you need to also go into advanced, go into DNS, and just uncheck this, register this connection. We don't want this connection to be registered with DNS, and done. And second thing, one more thing we need to do is just make sure that public network is available with the right IP address. So public network is pointing to DNS. This is fine. Do the same thing on the second card, on the second node actually. So second node, and we'll go here. We will just rename this as public. Why are we naming them public and private? Because in all the failover networks where you go to, they will be named either public or private, or internal or external. It's just make it easier for us to remember, oh, this is the heartbeat network, or this is public network. So here I'm gonna disable IPv6, and here 10.10.20 based on our diagram, and again go to advanced, done. Also one more thing we do is that we disable file and print sharing on this, and we're also disabling on this client for Microsoft Network will be disabling these because these are just mainly for heartbeat purposes, so they won't be using for any file and print sharing. So I'm gonna do the same thing for this other one as well. Go to properties and uncheck these. So now since we have these, now it's very important to ping them. So ping 110.10.10.20, which is the other one, and from other one let's ping the first one. It's pinging. So now our network is ready. Jumping back to diagram, what we just did, we just configured this heartbeat network. How do we configure it? Just add one additional network card, set up these, we named it private, we named this public, and they're all networking is fine. Now storage is fine, networking is fine. Next task is to install the failover clustering service. Here this is the setting, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so done. Now the second thing I need to do on this and this, we need to install failover clustering. We don't need it on the storage server, so make sure you're adding it to the right server. Next, it's a feature. It's a feature that needs to be added. So here, let's go down. It's not a role, it's a feature. So let's go to feature. It's right here, failover clustering. In another video I showed you that we added NLB. Now NLB and failover don't exist on the same server, so either you have NLB or failover cluster. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. And you go to next, next, move down to feature, restart if required. So it's adding now. It would just take time to install this. As soon as it is done, for now I'll pause the video. As soon as it is done, I'll come back to the video. So 2 minutes passed. It failed. So when I was doing it, I was adding it, it failed. The feature failed on both of them. Now the reason in my machine is I need to restart these both machines because I remember I reverted it to a snapshot before starting the video. In your case, you might not get this error message if you're not reverting it. So in my case, all I need to do is to just restart these servers and this will be all good. So restart and restart this other server as well. Now when we configure these settings, they might not work right at the first time, because even in real environment we would go through many hit and trials to make up implement a perfect failover cluster. So let's see, they're both restarting. As soon as they restart, I'll start the recording again. So both servers have been restarted. Let's log in. And retry failover clustering feature installation. Go back here, add roles, next, 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 and it's gonna be, hopefully it should let us install this time. Second one as well. Once this failover clustering feature is installed, then what we're going to do, we are going to open this failover clustering management tools console, which is basically which will appear here, and it is installed. So you can see feature installation. We can just close it, and then we'll verify on this it is being installed now, and it is installed. We can close this. We don't have any notification here. If there would have been error, this flag would change and give us notification. Now we can open failover clustering on any one of the nodes. You don't have to do it on both nodes or all nodes. It can be done. So we can open failover cluster, and so this is a failover clustering console. Now here the most important thing is, for now it is not configured. It is available here and here. We need to first validate configuration, and then we're gonna create the cluster. This is new in Server 2012. Now this validation does most of the important things. So within the validation, this first screen, we need to add the names of both nodes. So I'm gonna say browse went, and then I'm gonna select both nodes 2 and 3. So here you need to add both of them. If there are 8 nodes, you need to add all 8 of them. So this is for cluster to validate that are these nodes compatible with failover cluster, or they're missing any requirements. So we're gonna run all tests recommended, and then so now it's gonna check against everything that if these 2 nodes are ready to be configured as failover cluster. Now what is it checking? It is checking the iSCSI storage, it is checking the network, it is checking the disk space, it is checking lot of things. Now in previous clusters, 2003 and 2008, especially in 2003, we had to do lots of these checks manually, and it was a really pain. Whereas now in 2012, this is all made easy, because if an error comes while doing this, you still have to go and troubleshoot and fix it, but then at least it's doing most of the cluster configuration for us. So it's just keep on going. So far I don't see any error messages. Now especially if you didn't went through part 1 of the video, it will give you many error messages here, which means it must have a storage. So if we jump back to the video, our architecture, if you don't have this server storage, if you don't have this shared storage that is not connected to both of them, it will give you many errors. It will give you many warnings if you don't have this networking, heartbeat networking. So basically these are important stuff. So it's gathering data for all of the nodes. So once this is done, then we're going to create a cluster. The very first thing it will ask when creating a cluster will be the cluster name and the IP address. So we're going to provide this. Now this is a cluster virtual name. It will register this name in DNS, and when these user will try to connect to this server, actually they'll be connecting to first here, and this will be sending the connection here. This is the main purpose of a cluster, to provide high availability to services that are sitting here. So now our failover clustering report is available. There is no error. There are a few warnings, which is fine. Warning is not bad, but here it gives you, if you need to see the full report, it can provide you a full report in HTML, and it would show you that most of our stuff is all okay. Excellent. There are a few things that are warnings, which is not a big issue. So we'll close this. If this errors out, then you won't be able to create a cluster. So at this point, if it is like this, you can continue, and then what we need to do, it is saying okay, create a cluster. So basically it is starting this wizard here. You can close this, start from here, or you can continue with this as well. I'm gonna continue. First thing it is saying okay, so give us a cluster name, and our cluster name we decided should be wint.clu name. Wint.clu name. You can put any name, but we're gonna go through this. We're gonna use this name, CLU name. It's not, not case sensitive. You can write small letter, bigger letter. Now this is the important part. We want this cluster name not to be in the heartbeat network, so uncheck this. We need it to be in our public network. So here we also need to provide the IP address. So it will be from this network, and this is the IP address because we in our architecture we said this will be the IP address. And now next, now it is just checking this if this IP address is not in use by any other machine. If it is not, it's all okay, and then it starts configuring the cluster. So it validated it. Now it is creating a cluster. In few moments, it's the good thing about this cluster is that it automatically recognizes what is your private network, what is your public network, and how many storages do you have. It would show us right here. So once it is configured, I'll show you how it looks like. So cluster is configured, finish, and this is our cluster on this side. So here, as you can see, this is the cluster. The cluster name is this. It has two nodes here, and the name of the cluster is this. Now current host server is 3. Here it has two networks identified, cluster network 1, cluster network 2. And then let's look at the roles. In roles you see nothing. Actually in roles we add services that needs to be highly available. In nodes will show us how many nodes are there. So for now there are 2 nodes and both nodes are up. Secondly, in storage it shows us that we have 1 disk, which is the disk that we added, and the current owner of that disk is Wint3. If I go into, let's see, where is the disk? So if I go here, before we saw it here, now it is not here. The disk, actually it is in this server. So that disk can be only on one server at a time. So this disk is here, and how do we know? We can go back to clustering console here. So this is owned by, the disk is owned by this server. Now in networks it shows us there are 2 networks. There is internal network and enabled. Let's see, what is this network is 10 network internal. So it is, as I mentioned before, sometimes it is known as internal, sometimes it is known as private. And here this is our public network. So our cluster is ready to be used. So if your cluster looks like this, it's all good. This is the events, or it's the log file where all of the events are generated. Now what we need to do is we need to use one of the services to be highly available. One more time, this is my cluster. we just need to enable configure this cluster on one node and can be used on both. Now it shows us 2 nodes here. There is 1 disk which is a quorum. Guys, quorum disk is the disk that has the settings of the cluster. So this quorum will be having the settings of the cluster, meaning that how many networks it has, how many storages it has, how many roles are being made highly available through this. So quorum is a component of a cluster. Now let's go into roles and right click on roles and see what can we make highly available. We can go to configure role and next. So these are all the things that we can make highly available. For example, DFS, DHCP, a file server, a generic application, a lot of things. So I think the easiest thing would be for now to check is let's say uh, service. Let's say a service that we can check. So we can go to generic service, and here these are all of the services that are that we can make highly available. For example, let's find a print service, print spooler service. So this service. So we'll just select print spooler service next, and here we need to provide a name for the highly available service. Let's say we're gonna call it Wint PRTSRV print service 1, and we are going to provide an IP address, let's say 190.191. Next, and next, and no need to do anything here. Now this service is highly available, and this service actually is owned by node 3, so it is being available, which means now how to test this. So this is service. So for example, in this case it is, so print service is running on this. All these users, when they need to print, they're all comes to here. From here they are sent here. Now at any point in time, if the print service goes down on this one, these users will be automatically redirected to this. So this is the main purpose. Now in order to do this, we're gonna go on to this in services and shut down the service and see that if this automatically takes over or not. So let's go in services. So this is a cluster, and I'm gonna go, so for current owner is 3. Let's say that this node is not working. How can we do this? So first of all, we'll just take down the service, and service is present here. We'll go into services, we'll go into print service, print spooler. So this is running, and I'm gonna go and stop the service. Soon as I stopped it, the cluster should automatically recognized it, and actually, you know what it did? It actually restarted the service. So instead of failing over to the other, it just restarted the service. So that is why it is not failed over. Now let's go into the service and actually stop it and disable it so that it won't be able to restart. And now see what happens. And immediately what it did, it started the service on 2. So this is called failover. Now it was down on this one, so now the service is running on this one, meaning all the users will be automatically moved from here. Now they are going here. This is called failover. The users won't be interrupted. Second test what we can do, I'm gonna just change it back to normal. Change it back to normal, and it's not running on this at the moment. What we can do is we can move it back. So for example, you need to move it back to the other server. We can go into move, and we can say best possible node. Let's say best possible node. What is the best? So it automatically selected the third one. So this is how we can move the service between the nodes whenever you like. Now the second thing here is let's test our server availability. For example, if this server totally goes down, now let's try this. So power off. If this server is powered off, and let's say what happens now. So cluster should know the server is powered off. This was the server. It is kind of detecting at the moment, and as soon as it realized that the server is down, it should be able to move the service to node 2. Let's see. Well, it was able to detect the service down almost immediately. Let's see. mm, Refresh. Can refresh. Now refresh doesn't work. So here it saw a critical error, and it's not available. Retrieving item configuration. So this node is down, and the service is moved to 2. So this node is down, the service is moved to 2, which means our failover cluster is working fine. There is a warning saying one node is down. So I'm gonna just restart the server as well, and the cluster will go back to normal. Guys, this is failover clustering. It's not very simple and not very difficult. I would say do the lab part 1, part 2 few times, so that get a good exposure to failover clustering. We can add as many roles as possible. You can see in failover clustering you can have many types of, you can even failover cluster virtual machines and hard disks as well. Okay, thank you for watching this video.